sure about that. That may be another police vehicle. I'm looking just to make sure. Yeah, I don't. We have not actually found the vehicle for certain yet. Oh, I think this is it. Okay, rolling. Yeah, I can do a talkback right now. With who? Officers getting out of the car, guns drawn. Where are we at? Stand by. I'm trying to keep an eye on it here. I'll look at the streets in just a moment here. 1 south of Camelback, 1 mile south of Camelback. They got K9 unit here. I see smoke from. Those are gunshots. Those are shots from something. Shots from some kind of weapon now. So shots being fired. Shots being fired. This is at Thomas. This is Thomas and 44th. Shots fired into the vehicle by police. Full-size pickup there is the truck in question. Shots fired into the driver's side window. IFB, please. IFB. Phoenix police on scene. They're the only ones I see so far. Multiple shots fired at this truck as they came to a stop near 44th Street and Thomas. Just north of 44th Street and Thomas. Thomas totally blocked right now. That intersection completely blocked off. Phoenix Firebird police helicopter overhead providing light and coverage there, you can see. Correct. 44th Street and Thomas. The scene is just north of the intersection. Best bet would be probably bring them in from the west. Copy that. A minute out. I can do it. Jerry Ferguson in the chopper. ENG, how's my audio? Audio check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They were having modulation issues with it earlier. Copy. Copy loud and clear. Copy that loud and clear. They've got the door open. I still don't see a suspect. And viewer beware on this video. They fired multiple shots into the cab. I don't see a suspect that's been pulled out yet. Copy, 30 seconds out. It looks like there's somebody still in that vehicle. That looks like an arm to me. Looks like an arm holding the door open to me, an arm holding the door open. And no chance that we can get lower. Okay, if possible, please. There's a canine right there. Keep coming around. Come around. Canine being deployed. Suspect being taken into custody right now. Keep going. He's toward the back of the truck. Keep coming around. Quick. Come around quick. No problem. Yep. Well, I can tell you from an official source, we heard the words "officer involved shooting." Now that was from an official source. That was before the police pulled up behind this vehicle and then subsequently fired some type of rounds into the driver's side of that pickup truck. It looks like the driver then opened the door. We saw the driver's arm open the door. The driver got out. The police deployed that canine, and then the driver is being taken into custody as we speak. So it looks like the driver is alert. I'm not sure of the extent of the injuries. We're way up high, giving the Phoenix Firebird helicopter their space. They're overhead as well. And let me zoom out and show you a huge heavy police presence in the area. This is at 44th Street and Thomas. All directions closed at that intersection right now. That's what it looks like right now. Other than that, you know, we don't see any other occupants at this time. We don't see any other occupants or pets or weapons or anything. But as we come around to the front of the truck, look at that windshield. That certainly looks like bullet holes to me in the front of that windshield. And there's a number that the driver's side is all smashed out as well. Copy. Clear on 3. Also looks like bullet holes in the what looks like maybe an unmarked police truck adjacent to the white pickup as well. Copy that. 15 did make it overhead. 15, their news chopper did make it overhead. They did. They are. 15's chopper is overhead with us. Copy that, streaming. So for those that are just joining, live pictures from the Penguin Air and Plumbing News chopper of what looked like a pretty dramatic pursuit. This all ending at 44th Street and Thomas in Phoenix. This is just south of Camelback Mountain at 44th Street and Thomas. It looks like one suspect is in custody. I'm not sure if there's another suspect down there or what the story here is, but it looks like multiple gunshots or bullet holes in the front windshield of this white full-size pickup. There's two full-size pickups there for those that are watching here, and it looks like actually both of those pickups have bullet holes in the fronts of the pickups. You can see a multitude of Phoenix police officers down there, and as we came on scene, officers ran up to that full-size, slightly lifted pickup there and were firing some type of round into the driver's side. The driver's side window is broken out, and there are multiple, what appear to be multiple gunshot wounds in the windshield. Officers still have what appears to be a suspect on the ground right behind that white lifted pickup there in the headlights of those cruisers where all those policemen are standing around there. Again, this is at 44th Street and Thomas. The entire intersection right now shut down for police activity after a police chase. This came from the west along Camelback. It started out somewhere in the west. When we got the call, the chase was at 12th Street and Camelback, and it ended up here at 44th and Thomas. Let me try and zoom in just a little bit. It looks like they've got a suspect down there, what appears to be a suspect anyway, sitting up. The suspect was able to get out. It looks like they deployed the canine there, and it looks like that suspect has his or her hands behind their head and is complying with officers, but not until after they deployed the canine. And look at the front windshield on both of those trucks. It appears as though there's bullet holes in the front windshield. Now, interestingly, actually, there's that the hood of that white pickup looks like it's maybe riddled with gunshot, with bullet holes as well, or something down there. Medical crews now getting on scene as well. Go ahead. Copy that. Can we try and call someone and figure out if this started as an officer-involved shooting? Copy. Copy. Copy that. Do you want us to roll that, or do you have a cut of that? Copy that. I'll queue something up for you. Copy that. Ryan and Jesus are headed out there on the ground. So for those that are just joining us on the live web stream, Penguin Air and Plumbing News chopper over the scene where a pursuit involving Phoenix police just came to a conclusion at 44th Street and Thomas. A suspect being taken into custody. It looks like medical custody right now. That suspect suffered some type of injuries, as well as some type of projectile to that the cab of this pickup, this white lifted pickup in the front. There's also bullet holes on another pickup. That may be an unmarked pickup there. I don't want to speculate too much, but that pulled up right behind that pickup or alongside, and it looks like there's bullet holes there. We also heard scanner traffic that indicated that there may have been an officer-involved shooting, and there certainly was some type of shooting going on as Phoenix police concluded this pursuit near 44th Street and Thomas. As this suspect was taken into custody, officers, we saw smoke coming from the ends, the barrels of some type of a weapon being shot in toward the cab of that truck. The suspect in this truck then opened the door. The canine was deployed and pulled that suspect out of the truck onto the ground. The suspect being taken into custody as we speak right now. Loaded up onto the gurney there, as you can see, and being taken away. We just heard a medical call for a gunshot wound at this location. So somebody was shot down here, or we're presuming that someone was shot down here. And that may be the suspect here. We're still working to gather those details. I do see what appears to be blood on the ground there. So if that suspect was shot, that would make sense. The calls that we're hearing about a gunshot wound at this location, Phoenix police and paramedics are on scene at the conclusion of a pursuit, 44th Street and Thomas. This pursuit started over near the west. When we got the call, it was at 12th Street and Camelback. The pursuit proceeded eastbound along Camelback before the suspect turned south along 44th Street and came up just short of Thomas, just north of Thomas rather. We're not sure why this suspect was running from police, but we did hear that there was an officer-involved shooting, and we heard that before police actually stopped and came upon this subject. So this may have started. Now, we don't have confirmation. We're still working to gather confirmation on whether this involved an officer-involved shooting before the shooting that happened at the end of the pursuit. That is to say, whether this started with some type of an officer-involved shooting, or whether during the course of this pursuit there was some type of an officer-involved shooting. We've got crews headed there on the ground right now to get more answers. It looks like just one suspect taken into custody at this point. Say what? That's fine. I'm fine with that. And if and when it's possible to drop just a tiny bit lower, if and when you can drop lower. I know, is Firebird still down there? Okay. Gotcha, okay. Copy that. So again, for those that are just joining us, live pictures from the Penguin Air and Plumbing News Shop over the conclusion of a pursuit. It ended up at 44th Street and Thomas in Phoenix. Multiple gunshots, it looks like, were fired during the course of the Phoenix police taking this suspect into custody. As we came on the scene, we saw officers firing projectiles into the front of that lifted white pickup near the center of the screen. There's two pickups there. Both of them appear to have gunshot wounds, or bullet holes, rather. Bullet holes in the windshields there. Not sure what the story there is. The suspect vehicle is the taller, the higher lifted white pickup there. Copy that. Minute out. Police were able to then take the suspect into custody with the use of a canine, or the help of a canine unit there. And let me show you just I'm going to queue up just a little bit of video. Actually, we're just coming up on a live talk back, and looks like they're getting a police escort. So indeed, that does appear to be the suspect being taken away there. Let me focus on queuing some of this video up here. So as we come around the front of this vehicle, take a closer look, it appears that both of those pickups have bullet holes in the windshields. Less than a minute on 3. Okay. Looks like another ambulance arriving. Yeah, let me play that video of those shots that were being fired as police gave around. We were just coming on scene, so watch for the puffs of smoke coming from those officers' guns as they fired into the driver's side of the lifted white pickup down there. Subsequently, they took the suspect into custody with the help of a canine unit. Actually, let me forward through just a little bit of this video. Doesn't look like I've got that video, but they were able to use a canine unit to take that suspect into custody. The suspect appeared to be sitting up and responding and complying with their commands at that point, and that suspect has since been taken away in an ambulance. We just saw another ambulance arrive, so we're not sure. We're still trying to gather details on whether there's another injured person down there. We certainly hope that no officers were injured, but we are. We've got ground crews on the way, so we're going to gather more details about what exactly happened down there. Yeah, I was taking a closer look just to see if maybe there's an officer or somebody sitting on the front bumper there. Okay, yeah, it does look like there's somebody sitting on the front bumper of the fire truck down there. That may be the officer. It looks like it's probably the officer. And that's based on the fact that they took the other ambulance departed under police escort, and it looks like these guys are much less concerned about the patient that is sitting on the bumper of the copy that. How far away was that? A minute or so? Looks like that officer is standing though. If that is indeed the officer, which I believe it is, looks like they're standing. So yeah, that does appear like it does appear to be the officer there. And, And anything we can do to get a little bit lower is appreciated. Copy 30 out. You copy that, Andrew? Okay. So it appears that an officer was injured in this during the course of this pursuit. We're not sure of what the nature of those injuries are. So again, if you're just joining us, live pictures from the Penguin Air and Plumbing News Chopper, the conclusion of a pursuit. This is at 44th Street and Thomas. Both directions, all directions at 44th Street and Thomas closed after a pursuit ends with a suspect being shot at and a police officer being injured. There's the police officer being treated near the front of that fire truck. Let me zoom out here and show you the rest of the scene as it looks just north of the intersection of 44th Street and Thomas. Here's the suspect's vehicle with a number of bullet holes in the windshield. It also looks like there are bullet holes to the windshield of another pickup next to that suspect's vehicle. That may be an unmarked police or law enforcement vehicle. There's a number of bullet holes in there, and that would explain why we heard scanner calls about an officer-involved shooting even before this pursuit concluded. We're still trying to piece together the exact story here, but we did hear about shots being fired or an officer-involved shooting before this pursuit even ended. So we've got ground crews headed to the scene to get the complete story. This all started, well, we got the call. It started west of here. When we got the call, it was at 12th Street and Camelback. The suspect made his way down Camelback toward the east and turned south along 44th Street, eventually finishing this pursuit at 44th Street and Thomas, or police brought this pursuit to an end at 44th Street and Thomas. Again, that entire intersection completely closed right now, all traffic being forced onto surface streets in the area. Definitely want to avoid the area. Huge police presence at 44th Street and Thomas as a pursuit ends with a suspect being injured, taken off to the hospital. Looks like the suspect was shot. The suspect appeared to be was able to get out of the vehicle and then was dragged down by a canine unit, but was on his knees and complying with officers. The officer down there, as far as the officer's condition and nature of injuries, we're not sure what the nature of that officer's injuries are, other than to say they're non-life-threatening. There we go. There's that officer being wheeled off to an ambulance. Again, an officer being loaded into an ambulance with, we're told, non-life-threatening injuries. It looked like the officer was able to walk over to the gurney and hop on the gurney, so we're not sure of the nature of the injuries, whether the officer was shot or had some other type of injury. But we did hear that there was an officer that was injured during the course of this pursuit or during at the conclusion. We're still working together the exact details of why all this happened, why that suspect was running, but you can see the suspect's vehicle near the middle of the frame. It's the lifted white pickup there, has a number of what appear to be bullet holes in the front windshield, also bullet holes in a pickup next to that vehicle. A lot of police presence out here. Thomas and 44th Street remains closed after a pursuit involving Phoenix police ends with shots being fired. Let me show you what it looked like as we came on scene here. I'm going to back up some video and fast forward that, cue up that video for you so that you guys can see as officers got on the scene. Here, let me switch over to that video. This is video from, let's see, about about 30 minutes ago as we came on scene. You can see puffs of smoke coming from those officers' weapons being fired into the driver's side of that vehicle. And after that, it looks like the suspect was taken into custody. I'm going to fast forward a little bit of the video here as officers then got that suspect out of the vehicle. Again, this is video from about 30 minutes ago as police were taking this suspect into custody. For those that missed it, this is video as police were taking the suspect into custody. And I'm just going to fast forward just a little bit through this video to the point where they actually take the suspect into custody. There's the vehicle door, or the truck door opening there. And in a moment you'll see, again, this is Phoenix police taking a suspect into custody after a pursuit. The police will release the K-9 unit here. This is video from about 30 minutes ago for those that missed the conclusion of this pursuit near 44th Street and Thomas. It looked like at this point officers were trying to get that suspect to exit the vehicle. Let me fast forward just a little bit here. So, yeah, they were able to, the officers were able to take that suspect into custody, and that there's the aftermath. They loaded that suspect onto a gurney and took him off to the hospital under police escort. Phoenix, or actually we don't know what type of law enforcement officer, which agency the law enforcement officer was with that was injured, but a law enforcement officer was injured. It looks like mostly Phoenix PD. As I come back to a live shot here, it looks like mostly Phoenix PD down there. There are a few unmarked vehicles. That's why I say I'm not certain of the affiliation, that which department or agency the officer was with who was injured, but it looks like most of the folks working this were Phoenix Police Department. The truck, there's a couple of trucks down there. There's the suspect's truck, or the truck that the suspect was taken from. It's that white lifted pickup. And then there's another pickup that's right next to it. Both trucks have bullet holes in the front windshields. So it looks like what maybe had occurred is that there were officers in a pickup that was unmarked that was pursuing this lifted white pickup, and that those officers were being shot at, or at some point were shot at, because there are bullet holes in the front windshield there. And we didn't see multiple suspects in multiple vehicles. The only suspect we saw was the one that was taken from that lifted white pickup. Once again, location for this is 44th Street and Thomas in Phoenix. One suspect and one police officer injured at the conclusion of a pursuit through Phoenix near the Biltmore area. When we got the call, the chase, or the pursuit, was over at 12th Street and Camelback. It proceeded eastbound along Camelback and then south along 44th Street, ending up at Thomas and 44th. That's where police took the suspect into custody. Using the K-9 unit after firing some type of projectiles into the cab of that full-size pickup. Suspect got out of the vehicle, was taken down by the K-9, and then appeared to be compliant as they took him into custody He had his hands over his head, was kneeling and had his hands over his head at one point. He was loaded onto a gurney, taken off to the hospital under police escort. And then we saw an officer being treated near the front of a fire engine. That officer, we're hearing, has non-life-threatening injuries. We're not sure what the nature of those injuries are, whether the officer was shot or sustained some other type of injury there. We're working to gather that information. We've got ground crews on the way. Here's a closer look at the front windshields of both of those trucks, and you can see multiple bullet holes. It looks like there were a lot of shots fired in this. We're going to get some answers as to exactly how many shots were fired, who shot at who. Obviously, we saw officers firing into that truck at the conclusion of this pursuit, but it appears as though there was, it looks like there was it got pretty crazy with the number of bullet holes there. Just zooming out here to show you the area. This is 44th Street in Thomas. Let me give you a wide view here of where this is at. This is just north of the airport, between the airport and Camelback Mountain. 44th Street in Thomas is where, just north of the intersection, is where this all came to a conclusion. The intersection totally closed to all directions of traffic. All traffic being forced off into Surface Street neighborhoods. Luckily, it's late enough this evening that traffic's not really a huge issue, but I would imagine that the investigation into this pursuit, and we heard that there was an officer-involved shooting even prior to the conclusion of this pursuit, so the investigation is probably going to take some time, and as a consequence that this intersection is going to be closed for quite a while, I would imagine, at 44th Street in Thomas. Chopper to news desk. Do we know if that was a Phoenix police officer that was injured? Okay, copy that. So Larry on Facebook, I've just got my Facebook, just barely got opened up. I was having issues with my cell connection. Asking a good question, Larry's saying, what started this pursuit? We're not sure what started the pursuit, but I can tell you that from official sources we heard that, that there was an officer-involved shooting. Now, we're not sure if that officer-involved shooting happened during the course of the pursuit or at the beginning of the pursuit. Those are questions that we're working to get answered. We've got some folks headed there on the ground to ask those questions, and we've got emails and calls into the Phoenix Police Department to get information. They are down there busy with their investigation right now, and I'm sure as soon as they are willing to share that information with us, that they'll get that to us. But this just happened. So, but for what it's worth, we did hear that there was an officer-involved shooting even prior to all the shooting that happened at the conclusion of this pursuit. And for those that missed it, let me replay just a little bit of that as we came on scene. Just as we were arriving, Stand by for just a second here as I cue some of that video up, and you can see what I'm talking about. The conclusion of this pursuit. Now, this is video from about 30 minutes ago as we came on scene, and you can see puffs from officers, some type of a weapon, into the cab area of that white lifted pickup there. And then after this happened, the suspect opened the door under his own power, it appeared. He kind of reached his arm out and opened the door, and then officers deployed a canine unit. The canine dragged the suspect out of the truck onto the ground. Suspect made his way to the rear of the truck, and then was taken into custody. Suspect was kneeling with his hands behind his head, so not sure of the extent of his injuries, but he was taken, the suspect that is, was taken off on a gurney into the back of an ambulance under police escort off to the hospital. Let me come back to a live shot. We're also hearing that an officer was injured during this with non-life-threatening injuries. And I've got some video of that as well. Here's a little bit of video of that officer sitting near the front. It's a little difficult to see because we're up high, trying to give the Phoenix Firebird helicopter a little bit of room here, but the officer sitting near the front of a fire engine there. It looked like the officer was able to walk over to the gurney and sit down under his own power, so hopefully that officer is going to be okay. So here's a wide view of the area. 44th Street and Thomas is where all this came to a conclusion. Now, when we got the call, the pursuit was over near 12th Street and Bethany, actually, I believe. 12th Street and Bethany. It eventually made its way down to 44th Street and Thomas along Camelback. It basically made its way from west to east, ending up near 44th Street and Thomas, just north of. The whole area, though, shut down for police presence, and it's probably going to be shut down for quite a while because there was an officer-involved shooting down here with both an officer and the suspect injured. So best to avoid the area altogether. So Izzy is asking about Bethany and 43rd Ave. That may be where, we're not sure what happened out there. What we know right now is that this all started somewhere out to the west, and the pursuit made its way east along Camelback, ending up at 44th Street and Thomas. Yeah, that truck is all shot up. Actually, two pickups down there are shot up. Both the suspect vehicle, which is the higher raised pickup, and then it appears, I'm speculating just a little bit here, but the vehicle, the pickup that's next to it, appears to be maybe an unmarked police vehicle or a vehicle that was in pursuit that has bullet holes as well. So it looks like at least two vehicles down there had bullet holes. There may be other vehicles down there. It looked like there was a lot of vehicles that were pursuing this white pickup. Pretty heavy police presence. So the officer, the officer has non-life-threatening injuries. The officer, in fact, was able to walk over to the gurney and hop up on the gurney, but was taken off to the hospital in the back of an ambulance. So hopefully that officer is going to be okay. Not sure of the extent of the suspect's injuries. It looks like there's some blood down there on the ground. The canine was deployed and appears to have gotten a piece of him. And the officers did fire some type of a projectile. I'm not sure if those were less than lethal rounds or if they were actually firing live ammunition into the cab of that truck, but they were firing something into the cab of the vehicle there. And we heard a scanner call out for gunshot wound. A call for medical help for a gunshot wound at this location. So we're not sure if that was the officer or the suspect or both that sustained gunshot wounds. We've got a crews on the ground though working to gather those details and those answers. So the other pickup, the suspect's pickup is the white one that's a little bit lifted. And it looks like what I'm calling the unmarked pickup is like a silver pickup that's more toward the middle of the road. Both appear to have multiple bullet holes in the windshield. As you can see, heavy police presence in the area. Firebird, the Firebird police helicopter was overhead assisting Phoenix police on the ground as well. That Phoenix Firebird helicopter, that's the Phoenix Police Department's helicopter that assists in exactly these types of situations. So as we came to for those that are just joining us, I wanted to play just a little bit of video from about 30 minutes ago here. This is as we got on scene. Now watch carefully as an officer comes around the gray pickup there, and in just a moment you'll see puffs from the front of a weapon. There you go, in toward the cab of the white lifted pickup. That was the suspect's vehicle that was being pursued down Camelback toward the east, ending up just north of the intersection of 44th Street and Thomas. Police fired some type of rounds into the cab of the pickup. Then the suspect was taken into custody alive. They were pulled out of the cab with the assistance of a canine unit, brought around toward the back of the pickup. Suspect was kneeling with his hands behind his head and was taken into custody on a gurney in the back of an ambulance under police escort. A police officer also sustained some injuries in this. Let me fast forward to that video. There's the suspect being loaded into the back of an ambulance. After we saw the suspect taken away under police escort, we noticed that there was another ambulance that came in, and we got information from Phoenix Police that an officer was also injured with non-life-threatening injuries. You can see that officer standing right there near the foot of the gurney, walking under his own power, so hopefully that officer will be okay. We're hearing that that officer sustained non-life-threatening injuries. Once again, this is all near the intersection, just north of the intersection of 44th Street and Thomas in Phoenix. This started out to the west. Chopper to news desk. Do we have a point A origin on this pursuit? .43rd and Bethany Home. Is that what? Copy. 43rd and okay, copy. So we heard scanner traffic that indicated that this may have started at or near 43rd Avenue and Bethany Home. Still working to gather confirmation on that. This is what it looks like though right now at 44th Street and Thomas. So here's another zoom in to those trucks. You can see the light glinting off what appears to be bullet holes in the windshields of those two pickups. So an officer and a suspect both injured after a pursuit in Phoenix that ended up at 44th Street and Thomas. Video. Yeah. 15 still here. Chopper to news desk, are we clear from the scene? Copy that, we'll continue. So for those that are just joining us and are wondering what happened down here, let me play just a little bit of video as we came on scene of officers as they approached this white lifted pickup. Watch this officer. You'll see puffs from some type of a gun. Not sure if that was live ammunition or less than lethal rounds being fired into the cab of the truck. Okay. So again, I'm replaying video from about 30 minutes ago as we got on scene and this suspect was taken into custody. Coming back to a live shot here, still a heavy police presence in the area. You can see a Phoenix Police Command vehicle brought in. The suspect and a police officer both injured. We heard a scanner traffic that indicated that there was a gunshot wound at this scene. We're not sure if that was the officer or the suspect or both. But both the officer and the suspect were taken off to the hospital in ambulances. The officer has non-life-threatening injuries. Affirmative on all of that. Thank you. So again, live pictures over 44th Street and Thomas after a police pursuit ends with a shootout involving police and a suspect, or shots fired. Actually, we don't. I don't have. I should correct myself and say I did not see a suspect actually firing at police, but it does appear that there are bullet holes in the front of what appears to be an unmarked police pickup down there. And we did hear that there was an officer involved shooting even prior to the end of this pursuit. This pursuit made its way from what sounds like 43rd Avenue and Bethany Home down to 44th Street and Thomas. So from the west to the east along Camelback Road, and then south to Thomas here at 44th Street and Thomas is where all this came to a conclusion. And let me show just a little bit of video as we came on scene. You can see, I'm just going to fast forward and cue this video up for you. Here we go. As you'll see officers come around to the side of that pickup, and there you go. There's shots fired in toward the cab of the pickup. After these shots were fired, the suspect opened the door, was taken out with a canine, or dragged out of the cab of the pickup with the canine toward the back of the pickup, was taken into custody and was being compliant. He was on his knees with his hands behind his head, taken off on a stretcher in an ambulance to the hospital. We also then saw an officer. Let me forward through just a couple more clips of video. Oh, doesn't look like my video player is wanting to cooperate with me, so stand by as I show you. We heard then that there was an officer that was injured in this as well. Now the officer we're hearing has non-life-threatening injuries, and I know that we're up a little bit high, so it's a little difficult to see, but there were a number of concerned paramedics down there treating an officer near the front of that fire engine. The officer was standing on his own, was able to hop up on that gurney, but taken off to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Once again, this is all at 44th Street and Thomas. That's where this pursuit involving Phoenix police and a suspect came to a conclusion at 44th Street and Thomas. It all started, we're hearing from scanner traffic, still working to gather confirmation, all started somewhere out near 43rd Avenue and Bethany Home. Not sure what started this pursuit, but we did hear that there was an officer involved shooting, and we heard that prior to the conclusion of this pursuit. So there may have been some type of officer involved shooting even before the ending of this pursuit. Still a heavy police presence in the area right now. These are live pictures over 44th Street and Thomas. This intersection is probably going to be closed down for quite a while. There was an officer injured, as well as a suspect injured down here. Multiple shots fired, lots of bullet holes in the fronts of two vehicles down here, both the suspect vehicle and another pickup. It appears maybe that's an unmarked or law enforcement pickup. So this intersection is probably going to be closed with heavy police presence in the area. There's a lot of businesses down there. Pretty popular intersection, Indian School and 44th Street. So just best to avoid the area. All traffic's being rerouted through surface streets. So for those that are just joining us, live pictures from the Penguin Air and Plumbing News Chopper over the conclusion of a pursuit involving Phoenix police. A Phoenix police officer and suspect were both injured at the conclusion of this pursuit. There was a call for a gunshot wound out here. We're working to gather information about who exactly was shot, but I can show you video here. Here's another clip of video. Oop, here we go. There's another clip of video of what looked like the conclusion of the pursuit as officers took a suspect into custody. In fact, actually, let me come back to a live video and cue that video back up. It looks like it's skipped forward on me here. So for those that missed the conclusion of the pursuit here, I'm just gonna replay it here. We have a little recorder up here in the helicopter, and I can replay that for you right now. Coming up here as soon as I cue it up. Here we go. So here's video from about 45 minutes ago now, as officers pulled up behind this white lifted pickup. Now in a moment you'll see officers run around to the side of the silver pickup. There you go. There's some puffs from the front of some of the officers' weapons as they shot in toward the driver's side of that vehicle. We also saw officers firing from the other side as well. Multiple bullet holes in the front of the windshield of that vehicle, as well as the pickup beside us. Both pickups had multiple bullet holes in the front windows. We heard that there was an officer involved shooting. We heard that from official sources even before this pursuit came to a conclusion. So that may explain why police were so serious about, at the conclusion of this pursuit. It appears that this pursuit started somewhere out to the west, out near 43rd Avenue and Bethany Home possibly. We know that it concluded here at 44th Street and Thomas. Coming back to a live shot of the intersection at 44th Street and Thomas. Lots of police out here. Just north of the intersection is where those trucks came to a stop, and police were finally able to take that suspect into custody. So the suspect was able to, after the police shot into the cab or toward the cab area of that truck, the suspect opened the door under his own power, was able to reach his arm out and open the door, and a canine unit was used to pull the suspect out of that truck onto the ground toward the back of the vehicle, and then the suspect appeared to be complying. He was on his knees with his hands behind his head, was put on a gurney into the back of an ambulance and taken off to the hospital. Then we saw another ambulance pull up and heard that an officer had been injured as well. So here's a video of that officer who has non-life-threatening injuries. The officer has non-life-threatening injuries. We're not sure what the extent of the injuries that the suspect has, but the officer, we know, has non-life-threatening injuries, and indeed you can see, it's a little difficult to see in the video, but that officer was able to walk over to the gurney, hop up on the gurney. Okay, copy. No. So we're going to go land at Sky Harbor. We'll just hang out there on the ground and then pop up before 10.